sound wave. And then we'll get into echolocation, and we got more things on here. That's not a full list. Okay, what is sound? What is sound? If a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to see it or hear it, does it make a noise? No? Why not?
It's the compression of airwaves being interpreted by your brain.
Okay.
It's your eardrum.
Right. So there is a sound wave created. But yeah, sound is an interpretation of these pressure waves. So it's pressure, right? It's a change in pressure. You build up an amount of air or fluid, and then you release it, and it creates a disturbance in the air, right? And then that causes your eardrum to vibrate, which causes some ear bones to vibrate, which transmit through this circular fluid thing, and then passes it on into your brain. And you interpret that as sound. Okay, so we're looking at pressure waves. All right, so then there's some terms to understand when talking about these sound waves. So first, the one wave, so from crest to crest or from trough to trough, this is called the wavelength. Okay, and the number of wavelengths per unit time is called the frequency. And frequency determines what? Did anyone take physics? Is this new for everyone? Frequency determines the pitch. Okay, so what note it is, how high or low it is. Okay? All right. The height of the wave, of the pressure wave, is the amplitude. Okay, and what does the amplitude determine then?
How loud it is.
Right, yeah, so it's measured in decibels. This is how loud it is. Okay, so if I drew another sound wave here, okay, this one would have a higher frequency because its wavelength is shorter in the same time period, so it'll go through 2.5 waves in the same time period, where the other one does one wave, okay? And it would also be quieter because its amplitude is smaller, right? All right, so those are the basics of sound. All right, so echolocation sounds range from within our audible range, which is under 20 kilohertz. So kilohertz is frequency per second. Some of them are audible, but for bats, most of them are inaudible. They are above 20 kilohertz, so we can't hear them. For dolphins, the other group which actively uses echolocation, many of them are actually with under 20 kilohertz. Some of them are above, ultrasonic. Most of them are below. So we're going to do a sound test. Going to see how well you can hear. So it turns out as you get older, you lose the ability to hear the higher frequencies. Right? So we'll start at 22 kilohertz. If anyone can hear this, when you can hear this, raise your hand. Anyone hear that? Should be a very high-pitched noise. Okay, so that's 22 kilohertz. That should be above any normal person's ability to hear. But bats use within that range. Okay? All right, 21 kilohertz. Anyone?
Wait, is it like a pulsing thing? Is it...
No, that's just the air, I think. Wait till you hear one. It'll be big. All right, 20 kilo. I'd be very surprised, actually, if anyone can hear till we get, well, we'll just see.
You should close the door.
Yeah. I think so. Actually, it's probably going to be.
Aaron embraces his hand. I can hear.
Okay, and then there's another one that is on the stapes, and that's called the stapedius. Okay, so what happens is when the sound comes into your ear, it's amplified by the bones, and then the last bone, the stapes, butts up against the oval window, which then produces the sound up and down these canals. Okay, and depending on the frequency and amplitude and all that, it then, actually that's the wrong, not into the semicircular canals, but into the vestibule, I'm going all over the place, into the cochlea over here. Okay, so those are the sound waves. There's little hairs on the sound wave, on the cochlea. Okay, when they're pushed over, that stimulates the cochlear nerve, and then that transmits it to the brain. But when you make noise, and it comes out your mouth or your nose, it also transmits off the bones in your head, in your skull. So that can distort your ability to hear.
You're talking, you're not listening.
Yeah. So these muscles, the tensor tympani and the stapedius, what they do is when you talk, they contract a little bit so that you aren't hearing exactly the same. You're not taking all that sound in when you're speaking.
So that's why your voice sounds different on tape.
Yes. So the way you feel your voice is different than someone else because their ears are unflexed and open. Yeah. So you have a distorted conception of what your voice sounds like. And if you ever do recordings of yourself, usually you hate it because it sounds weird, right? Okay, but bats especially need this because they're constantly producing these powerful sounds, and if they are affecting their their hearing ability, then they'll cause self-deafening, is what it's called. So that their noise, their echolocation calls, are deafening their ability to hear if they didn't have these mechanisms in place. Okay, so they can also just in their brain kind of determine whether it's their own noise or a new noise and adjust accordingly. And then also their tympanic bulas are isolated from the rest of their skull, which is why it fell out in the skull that we have of the bat. There's a little tympanic bula. I'll go get it. So different types of calls and frequencies and wavelengths and all that produce different strategies. Okay, and so I've got a couple things here. A broadband frequency modulated call. So looking at bandwidth, this refers to the range of frequencies that the call makes. Okay, so let's draw a little graph here. So kilohertz is going to be the frequency. We're going to have different frequencies over here. And this is over time. Okay, if a call does something like this, then it's using, this is the range of frequencies that it's using, right? And so this one is using quite a bit of a range, right? This would be then our broadband frequency modulated call. Okay, it's using a broad spectrum of bandwidth, a broad spectrum of kilohertz or frequencies. What's that?
Like FM.
Yes, frequency modulated. Yeah. Not like AM radio. Okay. This second call here. It does not use a broad frequency. It uses a very small frequency. Can't even draw a tilde that small. Okay, and this is a constant frequency modulated, or CF call, or a narrowband call. And this is this allows detection of objects, but doesn't give much spatial information. Okay, so if you're this is used by bats or dolphins as their searching method. Okay, so they're just doing this constant frequency scanning to pick up their prey, something in the area. As they get, once they find something though, then they will switch to a broadband frequency, okay, multiple frequencies, and that allows them to target and provide information on what direction it's going, and hone in on it. But that call is not very good at locating things generally, because of the Doppler effect. Okay, what's the Doppler effect?
It's the thing a train does.
Yes. Okay, the thing a train, so when a train comes by you, it's not one sound that's constant the whole time. You have sound being created by the train, okay, and then as it's coming closer, it's producing those same sounds. And so as it passes you, you get kind of all these sounds that have caught up to each other and then pass your ear at the same time. So, right? So you get a burst of sound where the speed of the train and the sounds it's making along those points hits your ear at the same time. So that's the Doppler effect. So if you're doing just this broadband frequency call to find things and it hits something, it's not going to allow it to pinpoint the location very well because it has too many calls in there. It's going to be affected by the Doppler effect. So bats, when they're looking, will use a CF narrowband call when they find something and then start to target its location and direction. It's going to use a broadband call. So search phase works better for a longer distance. The broadband frequency works better for close distances. Okay, and the same organism can use both type of calls. It's just what is it doing within that. Okay, there's also two strategies. There's the low duty cycle. Low duty. So let's say there's 1 second where a bat or a dolphin is making a sound and then interpreting the echo. Okay, in a low duty cycle, they'll use less than 10% for making the sound.
Okay, so that's okay. So on the video notes it says 20%.
Oh, sorry, 20%. Yeah,
Okay, so it's 20 or 10?
20.
20.
So 0.2 of the second, they would be making the sound production, and then the other 0.8, they have to listen for the sound. They have to listen to the echo. So they cannot produce a sound and hear it at the same time.
Their sound has to be less than a second.
They're actually much smaller than a second. I think it's like 100 milliseconds.
So they're
They're
making
really,
a
really
sound
small.
for a really small amount of time.
But for 1 unit of sound and echolocation, it's only producing sound for 20% and then listening for the other 80%. Okay. The high duty cycle is greater than 20%. Less than 20%. For sound production, and they can make a sound and listen at the same time. Okay?
Okay, so it's greater for high duty than 20%?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just
My symbol, is that
yeah,
throwing you
the
off?
symbol.
The high duty side, yeah, I've got the symbols backwards.
I'm confused now.
So I just had this. The high duty cycle is greater than 20%. The low duty cycle is less than 20%. Might be more helpful just to write in less than or greater than. And what they do, high duty cycle. So these are different organisms. So you either are a low duty cycle bat or a high duty cycle bat, but not both.
So within the same species, they can't be both.
Right. Yeah. They're just
With each species of that.
right. So high duty cycle, they rely on the Doppler effect for locating things. So if you can interpret then, that change in sound according to the movement of you or the movement of whatever you're trying to capture, use the Doppler effect, you can use that for location. But generally, this isn't very good, like we just talked about, this isn't very good for very small things that you need to locate and that are moving. So these high duty cycle bats are mostly prey that don't move very much.
So not really aerial, right?
Right.
Just ground.
So like fruit?
Yes.
Fruit doesn't move.
That are, I can't think of a good word for non-movers, but that's what I'm going to put. Whereas low duty cycle, these guys, sedentary, sure, yeah.
I was like, what word are we looking for? I know.
Low duty cycle, they can locate aerial prey. Right, so insectivores are going to be low duty cycle. Frugivores, fruit bats, are going to be high duty cycle. Or there are bats that are insectivores, but the insects they eat are on leaf litter or on the ground, not flying. And so they move, but not like they aren't flying. Okay, so these guys are grouped together. Those guys are grouped together. Our last one, nasal and oral emitters. So nasal emitters emit the echolocation sounds from their nostrils. I want to see a human do that. Right? And then oral emitters emit the sound from their mouth. Now, both of the sounds still come from the vocal cords. It's just either going out of the mouth or going out of the nose. Again, nasal emitters. These are mostly frugivores. And oral emitters are mostly insectivores. And the angle of their skulls are different because the position of the mouth or the nose is going to be angled towards the prey. Okay, so if you're producing the sound, your mouth is going to, as you're flying, your mouth is going to be right in front where that prey would be. But then if you emit it out of your nose, then it's going to be turned down a little bit, so it's going to come out of your nose instead. And so then these oral emitters will have structures to help that sound increase in intensity or location. So they may have curved lips, okay, which act as a megaphone, which what the person was doing as well. He was like curving his lip. And then the nasal emitters will have structures to shape the sound out of their nose. So the nose leaf, some bats have this giant leaf structure which is right on top of their nose. So that helps to refocus the sound as it comes out of their nose towards their prey. And then they will also have lots of different features on their face for detecting the sound as it comes back. So you have on your ear a little projection, right? This is called the tragus. Well, theirs are very well developed to help funnel sound into their ears, or they can be in different amounts of development. Their ears also, some have really big ears, or really big ears for funneling sound in. And some don't, some use echolocation for orientation, but actually listen for their prey. So they aren't necessarily locating their prey, they can listen for them first and then go in and echolocate to seize them. And then there are even bats that have ears that are slightly different on their head, okay, slightly different as far as frontal position. So that allows the sound to hit their ears at different times, and they can use that then to locate prey and understand where it's moving. But there are some pretty ugly bats out there with lots of weird facial structures for either allowing the sound to amplify as it goes out or funneling it as it comes in. And
Dolphins aren't ugly.
what's that?
Dolphins aren't ugly.
No, dolphins are cute, right? But they have wired dolphins, then not, why do they not have all these crazy structures?
Water's easier to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, so they don't have to produce as strong of a signal to get the same effect in both sending and receiving the signal. Okay, so what we're going to do is watch this video. Okay.